Hey guys, Mrs. Horn here. Today I'd like to give you some notes on fossils. We need to be able to answer these two questions. What is a fossil? And what do fossils tell us about the Earth? When we find a fossil, what story can we conclude from finding it there? And before we get to the notes, I want to show you this place that I'm going to go to. I'm going to go here this summer, hopefully, assuming we can take our Wyoming trip. And it's a national monument. It's called Fossil Butte. And it's this whole park dedicated to fossils. And they have, it's a lot of fish, it's a lot of insects, plants, reptiles, birds. But all of the things that you find there are things that are from a tropical climate. So this area, which I'll show you what it looks like now, the picture that shows hiking trails, that's what it looks like now, which is anything but tropical. That whole area had a very different climate, and we can conclude that from the fossils that we find there. This is a pretty cool site, it has some interesting things on it. I will link it to today's assignment in case you want to look at that a little further. I'm in our notebook. I am on page, I'm somewhere in the 50s. I'm not sure because my page numbers are not going to match what you have. But I need you to find the page that says Earth History at the top. Grab some colored pens or colored pencils or just some plain something to write with. Pause the video if you need to get organized, and play it when you're ready. So let's start off with what is a fossil. And a fossil is the remains or evidence of something that was once alive. A lot of times we think of fossils as from animals, but fossils can also be from plants. Plants were alive, and plants can give us lots of clues about the climate and the story of the Earth. I want to talk about how fossils are made, but before I do that, we need to pay attention to these couple of statements here. And fossils are only made when there are hard parts of a plant or an animal. So if an animal doesn't have any bones, then it's not going to make a good fossil. So when we look at these pictures at the bottom of the page here, we'd want to circle ones that are going to make good fossils. Fish, that's going to make a great fossil, so you're going to circle that. Jellyfish, not so much, because those are made of all soft, easily to decay parts. It's going to decay very quickly, not going to be around long enough to make a fossil. The one in the middle, it kind of looks like a brain, but it's actually coral. So which is an animal, and it lives in shallow tropical waters, so that would make a really good fossil. Earthworm, not so good. Not all insects are going to make good fossils unless they're formed really quickly, so I'm not going to circle that one. But a shell, so from some kind of a bivalve organism, shells are going to last a long time and make really good impressions in sedimentary rock, so I circled that one as well. Okay, over on the next page, I'm going to go through the process in which a fossil is made. So we're going to start with knowing that all fossils are going to be found in just sedimentary rocks. You're not going to find any fossils in igneous because they're made of magma. And you're not going to find them in metamorphic rocks because those rocks have undergone heat and pressure, and fossils would have been melted or smushed right out of them. All right, so the first things first, we need something alive. Well, let's start with this fish. And then that living thing is going to die. And when it dies, in this case, it's going to get buried at the bottom of the water. The hard parts of that organism are the ones that are going to last the longest, and it's going to get buried under sediment. Those sediments are going to get compacted together and then cemented together, and it will become sedimentary rocks. Now sometimes that area will then get pushed up. So because of tectonic activity under the earth, it might get pushed up to become a mountain. Some of it might weather away and possibly expose the area where that fossil is. Like I said before, fossils are not going to be found in igneous rocks because the magma is really deep within the earth, and magma is melted rock, so a fossil is not going to withstand being melted. It's also not really going to be found in metamorphic rock because of the heat and pressure that those rocks have during their formation. Okay. If we flip over to the next page, what can we learn from fossils? Okay, so fossils are going to tell us that there have been lots of different kinds of living things that have already lived on the earth and that have lived at different times. There are things that we have fossils of that don't exist today. There are things that lived in different places, different time frames, and we know all of this because of fossils that we have actually found. Here are some examples of different things that we found. None of these things exist today. These are all things that have gone extinct. And just because it's gone extinct doesn't mean that humans did that. It could have just been their time to be selected against. When we take fossils and we arrange them in order according to their age, it might show how certain things have changed over time or evolved over time. There's a little biology in here for us. So for example, these trilobites, these are all different versions of a trilobite, and they're organized in by age in this picture. So it can tell us by looking at these fossils, it can tell us how the Earth's surface and how the Earth's environment has changed over time. So we look at the differences in these trilobites, and they're different in their overall shape. They're different in how many segments they have. They're different in size. So all of these features about them must have been helpful in whatever environment existed at that time. Any fossils that were made below the sea, present day, a lot of those things don't exist below the sea because they have been uplifted and now form current mountain ranges. There are some fossils of marine life in New York that used to be below an ocean, and now they've been uplifted to hills and mountains that we have in our own state. I want to do one more page of notes, and this is going to be the last page for today. Fossils can also give us clues about what the climate used to be like. And this is what I started talking about earlier when I showed you that national monument that I'm going to visit in Wyoming. And I showed you the picture of the fish. And in Wyoming, they conclude from fossils that it used to be a very tropical environment where that land is, which is not the case today. So fossils can give us clues about past climate. For example, right here, if we look on the left, this is a piece of coral, which again is an animal, and it is believed that lived under an ocean. Well, today in New York State, we actually find fossils of this coral in western New York. So having found those fossils gives us a clue that New York State used to be under a very warm and tropical ocean. Since coral today live in warm waters around the equator, okay, that's where coral normally lives, we conclude that New York must have been closer to the equator at some point in our history and had a much warmer climate. Fossils can also tell us about organisms and what they did. So when we find an organism that has these huge teeth, that's a really good clue that that is probably some kind of a predator, something that ate meat. We can tell a lot by looking at a fossil of an animal about what its diet was. I have some more notes on fossils, but I think I'm going to stop there because I don't want the videos to be too long and overwhelming. I am going to do a Google Meet today at noon, so during that meet I'm going to talk about the lab that I posted on Monday, which was the virtual radioactive decay lab. So if you have any questions, please join me. I'm asking everybody to check in with me. Even if you don't have any questions, please hop on for a minute or send me an email saying that you can't join me, but that you're okay and then you're doing the work. I hope this helps, and I will see you guys later.